I knew Frank Bisignano when he was in New York. He was known then, as he should be known now, as Mr. Slash and Burn. So can you imagine putting this man, who has no experience with Social Security, but who has experience in cutting the daylights of any organization that he becomes part of, being the commissioner?
Oh, my God. That is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer attacking newly confirmed Social Security Commissioner Frank Bisignano, who is tasked with avoiding the expected insolvency of Social Security after a long and distinguished career in the private sector at J.P. Morgan, Citigroup, First Data, and Fiserv. An Inspector General report last summer revealed that between fiscal years 2015 and 2022, Social Security made $72 billion in improper payments. Most were overpayments. Despite efforts to recover the taxpayer money, $23 billion remains outstanding. Social Security is projected to become insolvent within 10 years, at which time beneficiaries will receive only 83% of their scheduled benefits, according to last year's trustees report. Joining me now is the man himself, the new commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Frank Bisignano. Frank, it's great to have you this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, and happy Mother's Day to all.
Happy Mother's Day to you and to your lovely wife. And let me just say, I know Frank for a very long time, decades, and I could attest to his incredible work and his work ethic. Social Security pays out $1.5 trillion a year, Frank, does 74 million payments a month. You just left a company that does $2.5 trillion a day with 850 million transactions a day. What do you want to say to Chuck Schumer?
Well, first of all, he knew me when I was in New York, but I was down at 1 Broadway until I was confirmed. So I've been in New York, and I think we have a tremendous opportunity to improve here. Our ability to make payments accurately and have the data integrity. You know, people want to talk about, did 150-year-old people get paid? Well, that Social Security number is so important, the integrity of it and the safety and security of it. So I think there's a lot of work to do here. I'm excited to lead the agency, and I'm excited to work with my colleagues. The team the president's put together is the best team that's ever been assembled, and I'm honored to be on it. Thank you.
So, you know, Elon Musk told us that there are people who are 150 years old on the Social Security rolls. We know that the oldest person in America, by the way, is 114. So I'm saying it jokingly. There's no 150-year-old out there. Did those people who claim that they're still getting, that they're still eligible, did they actually take the money, or are they just on the rolls and they're using their Social Security number for other bad reasons? Tell us the facts. What's going on?
Well, as you know, I've been in the job about 2 days, but the thing I'm very clear on is the integrity of the data is job one, whether it's a payment or whether it's how that number travels through a system. So I think it doesn't always have to be that fraud happened through the payment. Fraud and abuse can happen so many ways. So job one's going to be ensuring that Social Security numbers are only given out and maintained to people who should have them. And so I think we need to think broader about what Elon and Doge and the president were talking about. It's not as simple as did a 150-year-old get a payment. It can be as simple as did that number travel through the system and still be alive and used for many other things. Think of how many times as an American people have to put their Social Security number down. So I see that as an integral part of the job. You know, the Social Security Department, and I've heard the previous commissioner only say with Chuck Schumer, I don't know, we have a darn good record with a 1% error rate. I think a 1% error rate is not acceptable. It needs to be decimal points to the right. And that 1% error rate's on everything. If you think about your own financial transactions, if you had a 1% error rate on them, or your own data integrity, you had a 1% error rate on them, you would really, really feel like you were at risk. So we need to shut down all the avenues where these errors happen, and in that is fraud, waste, and abuse.
So we don't know if, in fact, those people have actually accepted checks from Social Security. They're on the rolls. We don't know if they've actually accepted money, but we know that they could be using their number in different ways. Like, for example, they could be using the number to get Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah, the number can, yeah, I think having the number assigned to a person who's eligible to have a number, and then when that person passes, they come off, and we can't put people on the rolls that shouldn't be on the rolls.
I know.
I don't think it was all about just the payments going out the door. It's about the total integrity of the data that eliminates fraud, waste, and abuse.
Frank, I know you wanted to serve your country. Your father and your grandfather both served in the Army, and this is very important to you. Do you believe you can stop Social Security from going bankrupt within 10 years, which is the Committee for a Responsible Budget is expecting?
Well, what I think is the team that oversees the Social Security Trust, which I'm one of, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of Labor, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services. We as a team will get together later this year, probably in the next couple months, go through the information that's produced. This is effort across the board that also will involve Senate and Congress. I think doing our job right sure is accretive to this economic challenge. It's been a 90-year-old institution, and as the president has said, we have no intent to touch Social Security. We have no intent to break a system that can be improved, right. But we have no intent to break it. And I do believe that that team that will get together along with Senate and Congress will ensure that this is here for the next 90 years at least.
Okay. Frank, it's great to have you this morning. We'll be watching your work, important work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.